Hi.
Oh,
Hey, everyone. So this is Tia Harrison, Tia Marie. She is my dear friend and colleague. We've been in each other's orbits for many a moon now, maybe like 7, 8 years now.
mm,
And we connected through sort of the coaching, personal development, leadership circles. And right away, we were always those people together that were like, we were always on the same page with things. And the reason why I wanted her to come celebrate with me on my birthday meeting is that she is an expert in the thing that I have also been sharing with you, peppered in and out of the different things that we're learning. And that is that our brand is an energetic entity, and I've invited Tia to take us deeper on that subject. I think especially as our cohort, I mean, we still have a good 2 months, 2.5 months going, but as our cohort, as we start weaving together all of the golden threads that we've opened up into this beautiful tapestry of a refreshed and in some case new brand for your body and for the bodies of the people that you serve, it's just really perfect timing to have Tia here to share her magic with us, and magic it will be. So, on that note, Tia, I'm going to hand it over to you.
thank you. Thank you so much. It's so great to meet all of you. And if you have questions throughout what I'm going to share a bit of a musing with you about what I call living brands. And I'd love to have time to answer any questions that come up. So feel free to drop them in the chat as we go along. And I also don't know your perspective on this topic. Like, I don't know if what I'm sharing is going to feel obvious. And I'm certain that if you hang around with Amy, that much of this has been discussed on many dimensions of your expression in business. But this awareness for me has always been a cornerstone of my work. And one way that I have found myself continuously expanding in both, and I'm going to share with you kind of both sides of the coin here, in both like a limitless connection to what is possible, and also something that has confused me a lot.
Oh,
I'm
good.
going to talk.
We need to be real about the fact that, and maybe this is just a good place to intersect that the type of business that we do is not for the faint of heart. This is a spiritual journey in a lot of cases where things don't make sense, and there are things. Continue.
Yeah, I want to talk about that part because I think that part holds a lot of gold. So what I see is that once you apply any sort of essence or what I would call magic to a brand, if you find yourself to be an energy informed person, if you're trying to take your work beyond what I would call like what most people see as 3D or just mainstream or old paradigm, there's lots of spiritual jargon that people use in this space, then you're already applying essence and meaning to a structure in your business that holds the potential and possibility for more. And so when I kind of came from my past career, so I was in brick and mortar business for 20 years. I ran a butcher shop, a restaurant, a national organization, so a guild. So I was about the work, I was about the mission, I was about mobilizing around the mission. I felt like I was here to do what I would call like a passion project. So there's more involved than me just sitting at a desk and collecting a paycheck. When I left that industry behind, I came to a point in my journey where I just didn't know what else I was here to do. I was so my identity was so invested in me as that person that I just felt like I ran out of good ideas. Like I was like, what else could I learn? I guess I could be a bookkeeper. I was at this place where I felt like I didn't want to deal with people anymore. And the idea of sitting in a quiet room and looking at numbers and things that don't have emotions or expectations on me kind of felt like freeing, idea. And then of course I was incredibly bored by that as well. So that didn't last very long. But the trajectory of the journey is actually really important. So when I sat down to envision what I could do that felt more real, more true, more me, I embarked upon this concept of self around a living brand. So if we create our brands through a spiritual or energy informed perspective, then we're putting our essence into our work and we're using that to inform our identity. And our identity informs our business structure, our offers, and how we see ourselves serving in the world. Because usually, if we're in a service type based business, then we're serving because it's important to us. Like we're passionate about it. We want to put our hands on people. We want to assist people. In your case, you want to make people feel more beautiful. You want them to heal in many ways. And the work that Amy does really is about healing that divide between the expectations that beauty puts on you versus what beauty actually is. And we already know that that's an energetic game. And so when it comes to what I would define as magic and the intersection between that and a brand, is the reality that symbols have been used throughout humanity in all times from the beginning of our existence to tell stories. Okay, so before we had language, we could draw. Before we understood what dreams meant, we had correspondences and symbols that represent. If you look at sigils, if you look at logos, if you look at what does it mean to you to connect to, and even in Amy's brand, there has been conversations. I've had conversations with her over the years about certain symbols that repeat themselves. Like you might be somebody who sees what I call these correspondences, because when you're doing like deep esoteric study, like, Kabbalah or astrology or tarot, or the ways that we find like um, the way that the dreamscape kind of merges with the 3D, or the reality, the dreamscape merging with reality, we find all of that in symbolism. And the reason why symbols have been used to teach magic is because they help us cross that threshold. And they also help us to experience like an introspective journey that allows us to suss out the meaning of what these symbols mean. And so if you look at like mainstream branding, like big brands like Nike, or even one of my favorite brands like Gucci, or um geez, like there's so many, Coca-Cola, all of these big brands. When you look at that symbol, you understand immediately what that brand is about. If I said Nike to you, you would see the image of like an athlete in your mind. You would hear the tagline, just do it. You would see, Michael Jordan, doing his iconic dunk, right? And you see all of that without me having to sit down in front of you and, give you like a pitch deck on what does this brand stand for? What does this brand do in the world? What is their mission? Like you already know of that. All that information kind of cascades into your awareness, because in essence, they may not call it a living brand, but it has influence here. Like it has a story, it has an essence, it has a presence. And so the soul kind of dreaming us into reality and choosing to have a physical experience, I think inherently intertwines symbolism with reality. And what I find really exciting about the times that we're in is that all of us have a platform. Okay, so if you think about where people were at in their ability to like have a business or prop up a business or be a solopreneur, even 50 years ago, you were in a completely different landscape. People were advertising in newspapers, people were networking, people were having the opportunity to like maybe be shown on television. I think this is also why we held stars and Hollywood and actors and, people who got in front of other people's eyes as such sort of glorious figures, because that was an opportunity that they had that not many of us did. And in the times where we're in right now, we all have access to a platform. We all have access to social media. We can get out and say what we want to say. And there is an equal chance. You have an equal chance as I have an equal chance as everybody who has a cell phone and a computer has an equal chance to kind of take up a portion of that stage. But one of the biggest mistakes that I see happening when it comes to personal brands and the truth of the pressure that that puts on people is not understanding the role of identity and branding in business. And so when I said I was going to talk a little bit about like the confusing part, and this is what I've seen in my clients over the years. And so I'm just sharing this to kind of give you this part first, is that I see people needing their brand to be their entire identity, putting so much definition and meaning in either the efficiency of that brand to reach others and tell their story, the importance of it to be able to emote and translate a certain type of magic. And this would only be relevant to you if the conversation of magic was important to you. For me, it's a very important conversation. Um, the need for it to feel like it fits, right? To not kind of box us in and make us too small. And then putting ourselves in this position where we're constantly seeking and searching to find alignment within that topic or that conversation. And the flip side of this is that my truth is that these things are incredibly important, but we kind of approach them in the wrong ways. So what I have always used to inform what I create over the years has been a perspective of brand as discovery of potential. So brand as discovery of limitless potential, and putting and doing a lot of work to create a structure for that that houses me into my expansion rather than boxes me in, because I've been in this position so many times where I'm like, this is it. This is the thing. This is me. This is who I am. And then all of a sudden, as soon as I grow up against the edges of that, I feel like I need to reinvent and recreate myself. So the place that you get to when branding or working with a living brand from an empowered perspective um, looks like is when your brand is not your identity. Your business is not your identity, but rather it's similar to like a temple or a place of worship, or I like really like a temple. This is how I see living brands. It's like you build the structure, you know what your offers are, you know what your doorway is, you understand the magic inside of the temple. Your brand and the art and the symbols are like the stained glass windows. The words that you speak are the prayers, they're the scriptures. It comes into this right relationship with the fullest possible expression of how you show up in your work for your brand, and you allow yourself to have an experience of it that helps you to grow and become like, I wouldn't want to say like the most holy version of yourself in the sense that like you need to be perfect and right and like the most you know like, like untouchable human. Like you're not in there to become a god, but you're there to have a full relationship with your brand as a living entity that walks with you, grows with you, whispers in your ear, informs what you create until you get to the place where you finally feel like it is it is the thing that hits you straight into the heart. So over the years with Amy, and I've had a bazillion conversations with her about this. And in fact, we talk about this type of thing constantly, which is, I think, why um, we just connect on this thread, is that we live our brand in energy. And parts of us, or I should say, we know who we are at the root, but the journey of kind of unveiling that, or um, unearthing it within the process, if you put too much definition on it, is where I kind of get lost. Like, I've had this experience in myself as well. And this is why people use, just to kind of reinform or like reinforce the point of like having that inner architecture, that like temple as a brand. This is why people use things like human design, astrology, or different methodologies to inform their business practices. So if you look at like human design in the business world, is huge. And the reason for this is that if you don't have like an inner structure, if you don't have an inner template that says like, my energy works best this way, the reason why I respond to other people, difficult clients, struggle, challenge, procrastination, the reason why I beat myself up, the reason why my energy is supposed to work this way versus somebody else's, if you don't have like a deep awareness of that when you're in a spiritual business or a service-based business, because I believe that like entrepreneurial journey is the modern day spiritual journey. That's how I see it. I really believe that the modern day spiritual journey is the entrepreneurial journey, because when you embark upon that, you have to get your money right. You have to get your voice right. You have to get why you're here. Like, you have to know why you're here. You have to know what your mission is. Why? Well, because it takes a lot of work to come and show up for it every single day. And you've stepped outside of the matrix, essentially. Like, you left the desk job behind to be different, do different, become different, and be a beacon of that for other people in the world. And if they see you do it, then you believe that you can do it, and they believe that they can do it. And it's like this, you know, for all of us vibe, right? And if you don't have like an inner structure that tells you how to behave in that environment, it's really easy to become overwhelmed with the amount of personal evolution that it takes to run all departments in a business at once, right? Like, you're the HR, you're the marketing department, you're the customer service department, you're the innovation department, you're the VA, you're the janitor. You're literally, every person in the building is you, right? And so if all the people in the building aren't, or let me say it this way, look at what building you're in. That's why I like understanding my living brand in this way, and being able to kind of like craft and create a environment where I'm paying attention to the spiritual, or the essence side, or the soul side of what I'm potentially capable of, versus the side that I just shared with you. That means like, I can't possibly do all those roles. And I don't know if I really want to, actually. Like, I didn't come here to like be a janitor. Like that type of thing. And so if you don't have that structure, then you got to find it. You got to have some version of that for you. For me, it doesn't personally work because my soul is stubborn and I'm focused on potential and limitlessness. It doesn't personally work for me to box myself in to an identity strategy. And so what I've built myself around is the concept of creating with a living brand. All right. If you are in a reactionary position when it comes to how much you actually evolve in creating business this way, right? Then you are in a seeking position. You're in a soul seeking position. You don't have the opportunity to build the amount of self-confidence and energetic infrastructure required to like hold that field. And it ends up being, it can be kind of a brutal field, right? Because you're always looking at yourself in the mirror every corridor you walk down. Every time you turn the corner, it's just you. But on the other side of that is what I experience as a truly glorious, like slow seated journey, the most beautiful, potentially rewarding journey that you could ever embark upon, because you have, in essence, created like an avatar or a dreamscape that walks with you. And so the work that I do with my clients over the years has really spanned like the entirety of that landscape, from practicality. And when I say practicality, I'm talking about logos, I'm talking about what, tech, websites, automations, funnels, offers, to the other side, which is like color as magic, symbols as magic, logos as magic, the embodiment of that as magic. Like what Amy has created with her mirror room is a perfect example of someone who is representing a living brand. Her brand has adornments, it has energy you can feel, it has rituals and ways for you to worship and practice within it. It has rooms you can go and sit in. It has magical objects. It has um uh, um like there's a reverence to it. So there's a multi-dimensional layered experience that, once you put all those pieces together, actually creates a kind of magic, not only that is real, but is her pulling through and channeling through the fullest expression of what she's here to teach. And I think that one of her main arguments is that the mainstream beauty, or why she's so, what I would say, or what I would call burnt out, disappointed, in opposition to standing up for something better and different, is the fact that, what I shared with you about a temple, what rests inside of that actually is beauty, right? It's beauty for our relationship with God, Mother Nature, the divine. It's a home, it's a place where we can be fully there. And you can't minimize that. You can't bottle that. You can't put that in a pigment and walk away and say that that's all there is. And it's the same for you. It's the same for your brand. It's definitely the same for your soul. And so the work of applying this much intention and detail and journey with your brand not only expands your ability to be visible, right? Because what you're going to see in the industry moving forward is that everyone's can be an artist now. Like the work that it took me years to develop through online digital art, now you can do that with a prompt. You can create a video with a prompt. You can clone your voice. You can make up stories with AI. You could be a hidden person that is false, that does not exist, filled with the potential to speak to everybody's fears and insecurities and all the lowest vibrational possible expressions of humankind, human nature. And you can be seen on that stage for that. But the reality is that people can feel what is not that. Even if they're not aware of it, if it's not conscious, people can feel your essence. And that is what you have to truly believe in order to not only understand what it means to have a living brand, but to extract the fullness of that, because we miss so much of what is possible when we have one-dimensional relationships with everything in our lives. So to wrap up, I will just share that, like, what I've learned first and foremost is that people truly meet themselves in this space. And so if we can have a brand that feels like us plus magic, right? We can settle the seeking, this is my sense, of our soul, to make connections with reality back to that inner state of magic and essence that feel truly like a map. This is a guide that informs our voice, our art, how we hold ourselves, how we dress, how we move in the world, the way we speak in the world. It changes the tone of our voice. It informs everything that we do because we've chosen to step into this higher self beauty, as Amy would say. And I've considered for years, this is what got me started on this work. Years and years ago, when I was studying in a mystery school, I started to get curious about the images of gods and goddesses and archetypes, and like people who carry around a laminated card of an archangel in their purse, or saints, that wear in Catholicism, that wear medallions of this saint or that saint, and how this type of behavior, um, or our need, rather, as humans to hold symbols sacred, to hold images sacred, comes from the fact that we can feel an essence in that iconic image, right? We can look at that and we can feel perhaps that we're supported by that, or perhaps if we touch a medallion on our necklace when we feel lost and broken and unloved, that we're somehow being healed. Like, what does this do for us? Where does this come from? And what would it look like for us, right? If we understood that saints, archetypes, iconic figures, leaders, gods evoke energetic templates. What if we understood that? What if we knew what presence felt like when it was exalted, truly? And what if we had our own version of that for ourselves? What would it be like if we had even a painting in our homes of us in the most glorious, sort of magical expression of who we are? If we saw beyond our human form into our energetic state. And so I started painting these portraits for people in the mystery school. That was at the time, I would call it like your goddess self, or your god or goddess self, because that was the language that they really used. Everybody was a god, goddess. And I thought to myself, if I was going to sit down at my desk and work, and I had a moment of inner wobble, instead of pulling, and holding a medallion or looking at something out there to solve the problem, and I could see a vision of myself that was full in those correspondences and that expression. If I had an altar of self to pray at, not to inflate my ego and not for self-importance, but rather to really feel that I am important. Like I am important. It's not like a zero-sum game. Like, just because there are higher expressions of divine truth, it doesn't mean that my spark and my little seed of that isn't equally as important. Is it important to me? Like, is that really important to me? So what you have to remember, and what I want to share with you, is that your energy is profound in its bigness. And my theory is that if you see it, or rather until you see it, that you'll always kind of like catch a glimmer in the corner of your eye of like what that is in you, and you'll spend your life like turning your head in the curiosity of trying to see it. And so instead of the distraction of that, learn to create a way of being in the world that reminds you of it, and then, you know, put your put your hands in it. Like, put your hands all the way in. And so that's my philosophy on brands and living brands. And so you might ask, well, how do we achieve this? Well, you achieve it through careful curation of your energy, through intentional creation of your brand assets, through educating yourself about how to, execute in your business by getting guides like Amy. But, Amy's brand essence really is being that beauty guide, right? Because she's guiding you through that process and sharing with you what she's capable of. And if you do that for other people, then you achieve a layer of magic that is very powerful in the world. So that is my share.
Thank you. I want to reflect on a few things, and I think there's a million questions that have hopefully opened up for everybody. But I'm going to piggyback on what she shared and talk about my own brand journey, which I've shared my Wayback. Have you ever gone to the Wayback Machine and looked at all your old websites? It's called the Internet Archive, internetarchive.com. Tia, you got to do it. You
I
go to
don't
the
want to.
internetarchive.com and they have a feature called the Wayback Machine, and they have taken screenshots of all of the websites that you've had over the years, even if they're closed down. So I went back and I looked through all the things and I shared that a little bit. But what really was coming up for me is how uncomfortable I felt in some of these brand identities because A, I had over-identified with them. B, I was still playing safe and trying to please the audience first. C, I was trying to get approval from anybody and everybody besides myself. And so from the very beginning, I've always had a knack for brands, and maybe to the point where I didn't even realize that I had a special little knack for it. And putting together some of the brands for the women in the room here has re-shown me that it's something that I really love doing. And I think it's because I love to help walk alongside the path that I have been on. So my first brand in beauty was Mendocino Beauty. Well, would you look at that? That's a keyword. So right away, that was a big success because people were already searching for Mendocino beauty services. And my first website was in the WordPress for Dummies book. And it was fantastic. I had a tagline, I had a wonderful, it was beautiful. And let's see, it was an experience, a lifestyle. It was something, an experience and a lifestyle and something else, but it was like this really good tagline and it was really, really successful. I think my last year in business, I did close to $500,000 in sales. But I was miserable because it was for everybody else. It was for the people coming to Mendocino who needed beauty services. It was for all the employees that I was employing, and I had to walk away from it. And people asked me, was I crazy? After that, I sat in my spa here at my home, in my home, which is now the Airbnb, and I thought, what is this? What is it? I don't believe in mainstream beauty, but what it is it's love letter from my soul to your skin. And so I thought, love Amy. Well, guess who's using that as a huge campaign right now? Converse, owned by Nike, ironically, where they talk to all their sports people and their sports, their people that they represent, and it's like love them. So it's like again, that was the iteration that I knew, but I had like a little pink heart and it was very girly. And then I was thinking, God, I'm like codependent and I'm doing too much. And I don't feel that loving all the time. Sometimes I need to be a little strict. Sometimes I need to tell the client, this is what you need to do. And I just felt like I really need to bust out of that. At the time, you guys, I was judging myself a lot for changing my brand. And I'll ask you a question because it's my awareness that we don't live in a world anymore where you're going to have legacy brands that are going to be the same name and look the same for 30, 40 years. Those days are kind of over with the internet. And especially in the personal development worlds, a lot of times we have a personal brand and then we come up with little mini journeys and programs and offers that have different names. But at any rate, I used to judge myself a lot for changing it. Then after Love Amy Signature Skincare, I became Love Amy Skin probably listened to a podcast about how Federal Express became FedEx, and I shortened that bad boy down. That was also very successful. And however, and this is probably when I met Tia, I was not comfortable because it said Love Amy Skin, which looked like Love My Skin, which was fine and good for SEO, but it made it about me, and it made it about Love Amy. And it always just felt a little cringe, but not cringe in a way that was like, oh, I'm practicing visibility. It just felt cringe. And I think it was because the word love, and I'm very sensitive to the meaning of words and to the energetic signature of a word. And love means like literally something different to every single person. And it just didn't feel like me anymore. Then for a year, I was activate your ageless because I was like, I just really want to help women feel like breaking free from the mainstream beauty industry. And so it was AYA, Aya for short. And boy, that was got a lot of feedback from people saying that it sounded like ayahuasca, which, I live in the woods. What are you going to say? I've got a psychedelic nature a bit, so I didn't really care about that. But all of a sudden, the word ageless like died for me. Like, what? I have the word that has less on it. And I just started going like, no, I got to keep going bigger and bigger. And Tia was really one of the people that I would call and have these absolute meltdowns. Like, what in the fuck am I doing with this? I just can't. And it came through another dark night of the soul that I wanted a name, which is now the Skintessa. I've kind of walked away from talking about higher self beauty publicly, but it still is a real tenet and pillar of what I teach, sort of that uppercase beauty idea. But the Skintessa is where I do feel like the Skintessa will be a legacy brand because it's a made up word. I was able to get a trademark on it. It evokes that quantum energetic like essence. And what you were saying earlier, Tia, about like it walks alongside of you and informs you and whispers in your ear. I had shared with the group that I'd had 17 days of insomnia before today, where I literally cannot fall asleep. And it makes me, I feel like, not only do I feel like I'm going a little crazy, I don't have access to my sparkle magic that I normally have, where I'm just like, ah. And yesterday, I really needed to do some marketing and some videos, not because, I had to, but I just felt that my audience was ready. I had things I wanted to share. And so what's wonderful about the brand that I have is I didn't have to do the heavy lifting. I just showed up with the camera here in my spot, made sure to hydrate, wrote myself notes about what I wanted to go live on. And as soon as I started going live, Skintessa takes over. And she's got lots to say, and I didn't have to effort my way through that. And all the mat made it was a little, that didn't come out as smooth as I wanted it to, but I could certainly like rest in the arms of the messaging of my brand. And I just really felt like I feel like the Skintessa is this archetype within my own brand that works with me and I don't have to work so hard. So, on that note, I would love to open it up for any other questions that opened up in the group, but maybe Tia, you want to speak to the nature of changing your name and changing your brand and that type of thing.
Yeah, so it's it's one of those things where I've gone through a couple name changes, but I tried early on to find a name that wasn't going to box me in. I feel like I was very aware of my nature to want to like create something and then want to grow beyond it. I feel like for me personally, and this will not be the same for everybody, but my desire to like be consistent is part of my journey. And so I picked a brand name that was made up, kind of similar to what you shared about Sanatia. It was the name of like my brand entity. So I did that so that I could have the freedom underneath it to create different types of experiences and lean on my desire to like create new things in that so as not to confuse my audience. I also have worked with many clients who are like, listen, something is trying to come through and I really like I must know the name. Like I need to name it. I need to kind of name it and claim it. And there are times where that's just incredibly important. Like you said, for Mendocino Beauty, it's just that wasn't gonna grow with you. So instead of fighting that, I think if we come to the table in a process in a position where we're thinking about like hitting the tip of the stream. So like just going kind of like higher and higher and higher as far up as you can go, and then looking at that place and making sure that the brand of the umbrella is going to carry you. That's my recommendation. I mean, you can always use your name. You can always have a personal brand too, which like you said, a lot of people do. They focus on a personal brand and then they have different projects and things that they kind of weave into that. I've even heard people who have really big brand names say that if they had to do it over again, they would have focused on a personal brand. And I remember hearing that at the time and thinking, that's really interesting. These are people with like millions of followers. And I think it is because I do feel like we end up feeling boxed in by brands at some point.
So if we're pressured to perform or pressured to come up with something, and then also it's just that we change, like with me,
Yeah,
like.
exactly. We evolve.
And for me personally, I have always been prone to people pleasing and feeling so aware of how I'm perceived by others. That's why my three mirrors framework has been very impactful for my own self of realizing, I was trying to please the third mirror. I was trying to please the social mirror with my brand.
Mm.
Make it like, oh, it's going to be great for SEO, and oh, it's going to be great for this, and oh, it's going to be great for that. And when I finally had the Skintessa, people make fun of me about it, like, too. I mean, you know how people do that where they don't even know that they're doing it, where they'll be like, oh, hey, the Skintessa. Hey, Skintessa. Like, it's like, I realize it doesn't please people as much as Love Amy did, right? Or Mendocino Beauty. And that's okay because I think the other thing about a brand, which I am fully embracing now, is that it's okay for the brand to polarize because to have that magnetic attraction field, we do want to sort of stand as a lighthouse with our mission and our message within the words that we've chosen, within the colors that we've chosen, and within the imagery that we've chosen. I just got a branding photo shoot last month and I mistakenly interwove it with a birthday photo shoot. And then my sister also got some branding photos. And I just showed up at that branding photo shoot like the sister and the daughter in that identity. And, careful not to outshine my sister, careful not to be too weird looking to my mom or whatever the things were. And I got those photos back and they're unusable for me. They're absolutely unusable because I wasn't standing in my truest expression of like this is who I am. Without getting into like family therapy about it, there's nothing wrong with my mom and my sister. I get along with them great. It's just that I wasn't able to be captured because I wasn't actually inside of that Skintessa energy when I had my photos taken. And I do agree with you about the AI thing. I use AI all the time for all sorts of things, but we cannot replace the power of our own word, and our own image being expressed outwards. So, on that note, let me open it up for any questions or musings that came up. And then also, I think it'd be fun, Tia, for you to screen share and show us your beautiful brand.
I'll definitely share some things.
Okay.
I'll wait. Do you want to wait till people?
Yeah, let's do a little. I feel like there's got to be some questions. And if not, sometimes these kinds of things are that we just sit and digest them. But I believe that the branding part, so in this program, there are like it's like a constellation of like, hey, let's develop our own methodology and also call that something unique, right? Doesn't have to be the name of your business. But I had the time light facial experience. I only offered one facial. And so that's part of what we are working towards and having is like that one soul service is what we call it, what I'm calling it, that nobody, you have no competition because you're the only one that offers it, right? Moving away from in the industry having like the anti-aging, microneedling, la 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 facial. So that's one part. The other part is learning some of these esoteric things that I've discovered along my journey about how LED light informs consciousness, about water magic, about the power of rituals, about the power of having our clients stepping into a ritual at home in furtherance of the results that you're working on. Then we have the ability to private label my product line, creating our own brand, and then attention to the messaging, like who we serve, what we solve, and what we transform, and really being able to put that out into the world onto our website. And I just feel like the brand pulls that all together. And brand is also like what your clients are feeling when they come into contact, right? They're getting the cascade of the dunk and all the different things that maybe a Nike evokes. But for us in this busy marketplace where attention spans are literally like what, 3 seconds these days, we want our brand to make an immediate impression. I think Talia does a really good job of this on TikTok, where Talia was actually channeling all of the same stuff that I've been doing for years and years and years and years at an even, more expanded level on in some ways. And she's also, I'm sorry to call you out, Talia, but also the youngest person in the program and a new esthetician. But what I really like about the way that she brings her brand forth is she just really hits on the one message. And so already I see when I see Talia's videos coming through TikTok, I know that that's Talia. I don't, she always wears the same, she's got her pink going on in her videos. She's coming forth with a certain kind of energy. And that energy, whether it's the color or the tone of your voice, that is informing how people are feeling about her on the other side of the screen. And so I think that's just really on my heart. And I guess I don't need to say it again, and maybe I will say it again. I am going to say it again. Tia knows I never imagined that I was going to be training estheticians. I really didn't. I thought that I was just going to take this to the consumer and we were going to just, I was going to live happily ever after. And I was going to help somehow shift and uplift how 1 million women felt about themselves when they looked in the mirror. But God, source, whomever tapped me on the shoulder and was like, oh, actually, no. It's other people that need to bring this forth. It's not about you, it's about other people. And so the vehicle for consciousness, the vehicle for delivering consciousness is the brand because the brand is the virtual temple. And so how many of us and of the clients that you serve, Tia, do they have websites that haven't been touched in years? The words haven't been changed, the images haven't been changed. We can't do that anymore if we want to work at that highest level. So part of my mission inside of this container is to just sort of normalize that just like a person is going through an identity shift and maybe changes her style and changes the type of clothes she wears, the brand, you don't have to change the name to like uplift the brand. We can, reimagine our logo. We can reimagine the messaging. We can reimagine and and keep freshening and sweeping the floor of that virtual temple.